All right, we're going to get started since it's 9:15 and there's a lot to cover, as always, as we go through the book of Genesis. Today in our Genesis class, we are starting what I think, and this might be foolhardy to say out loud, but I think will be 3 sessions on Joseph. It was originally going to be 1, and then I said 2, and then I saw how dense the second section is going to be. We're going to skip things again, believe it or not, but even still, I'm not sure we're going to get through all of session 2 in one day. But today, we're doing 39 through 41, just 3 chapters. I think we should be able to finish it. But in these 3 chapters, we get 3 unique stories of Joseph in Egypt. So where we left off, Joseph's brothers have thrown him into a pit. They have sold him into slavery. They've convinced his father that he's dead. And so we are now finding ourselves in Egypt for the first time. This is the location of Joseph's slavery. And what we're going to find out is where he wound up, how things went poorly afterwards, and what happens next. But we're following the story of Genesis from very beginning in creation to fall, to all of the things that went wrong, to the beginning of the promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And now we come to Joseph. And we're going to see God continue to work in this family, the family of Abraham, to establish his people in the world. And he's going to use Joseph mightily to do that. Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. This is our setup. This is where we're going, but we need to summarize what's going on really quickly because it'll be important later. So Joseph finds himself in Egypt, right? And he has a bit of a rough beginning. He's been sold into slavery. He's leaving his father's house and the comforts of his father's house and his family, and he's bought by a man named Potiphar. So he's in a new place. He's in a new place here. And not only is he in a new place, but wherever we go, we're told basically the Lord is with Joseph. The Lord is with Joseph. And not only is the Lord with Joseph, but what does his master see?
The Lord causes everything he does to succeed.
Yeah, his master sees that whatever he does, he succeeds. He sees that the Lord is with Joseph. Okay, this is our starting point. Just a quick summary of what's going on, because it's really quick here. But it's setting us up for what's next. So we had a rough beginning. We're sold into slavery, but very quickly Joseph seems to kind of bounce back. The Lord is with him. The master sees that everything he does succeeds. So Joseph found favor in his sight, in his master's sight. And he attended him, and he, his master, made him overseer over his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had, in house and in field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge. Seems reasonable to do, right? Anything I give to Joseph is perfect. It goes well. It prospers. So let's give everything to Joseph. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and because of him, he had no concern about anything but the food he ate. Okay, so we have another detail for our story, that Joseph is made second in command, in a sense. And we'll just say overseer. But Joseph is made the overseer. One more detail for us as we're setting the scene. The blessing of the Lord is on all that Joseph has, that all that Joseph oversees. And Potiphar is thereby blessed by Joseph. This should remind us of the promise to Abraham. If you were there for that study or the earlier sessions that we've mentioned several times now, what's the promise to Abraham that's relevant here?
I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you.
Yeah, so I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Exactly. Here, Potiphar elevates Joseph, and immediately Potiphar is blessed. God is fulfilling his promise given to Abraham, given to Isaac, given to Jacob. And now God is seemingly fulfilling that promise to Joseph as well. We haven't seen the kind of transfer of power, so to speak, that we'd seen in previous patriarchs, but God seems to be honoring this promise to Joseph as well. Okay. Now, the fun part. Now, Joseph was handsome in form and appearance, and after a time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me." Very brief, very direct. But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am." It's quite a statement for a slave to make, right? "Nor has he kept back anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" Sorry, there's a spider web clinging to me here. So Potiphar's wife is very direct. "Lie with me." 3 words. And Joseph instead gives this massive response. What 3 reasons does Joseph give?
The master gave him everything but her.
Yep, he's given me everything.
Doesn't want to sin against God.
He doesn't want to sin against God, so we've got reason number 3. He hasn't kept back anything from me. Reason number 2. What's the first reason? Yeah. Well, we'll count that reason number 3, that it's his wife. It's a very wicked act. That's reason number 3. Reason number 2 is he's blessed me so abundantly. How could I scorn these blessings that he's given me, these abundant blessings that he's given me? The first reason here is here in this first sentence, "Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he's put everything that he has in my charge." So the first reason is about Joseph's role and his authority. It's a betrayal of trust that Joseph is saying he doesn't want to do. I can't betray my master's trust this way. He's trusted me with all these things. So I'm not going to betray his trust. I'm not going to scorn the ways that he's blessed me. And hey, by the way, the act is wicked in itself. You are my master's wife. I shouldn't sleep with another man's wife, right? So three reasons. Does this satisfy the woman?
No.
No, unfortunately. Who wants to read?
And as she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not listen to her, to lie beside her and to be with her. But one day when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was there in the house, and caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." He left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house.
Does Joseph do the right thing? Yeah. We might question why he found himself alone in the house with another woman that he knew had designs on him. That by itself might be questionable. But once she comes, unswayed, she's saying just the exact same 3 words, at least here. Once she comes and tries again, he flees. But what does he leave behind? Evidence. He leaves behind evidence, and that's going to bite him. Okay. Who wants to read?
And as soon as she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled out of the house, she called to the men of her household and said to them, "See, he has brought among us a Hebrew to laugh at us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And as soon as he heard that, I lifted up my voice and cried out, and he left his garment beside me and fled and got out of the house."
Who does Potiphar's wife blame? Who does she blame first? Oh, Potiphar, yeah. Man, that's a rough beginning to this, right? He has brought among a Hebrew to laugh at us. And then he, the Hebrew, came to lie with me. And I cried out. So yes, she blames Joseph, but she starts out blaming Potiphar for the hearing of all the people. This is not my fault at all. The woman you gave me to be with me, she gave me the fruit and I ate, right? The serpent, right? So we play the blame game, and then we blame Joseph for her sin. Who wants to read?
Then she laid up his garment by her until his master came home. And she told him the same story, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came in to me to laugh at me. But as soon as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment beside me and fled out of the house."
Yeah, the story's a little different, right? She doesn't blame her husband here, not directly, though it's implied. But she lays the evidence right next to her for him to find. And this is a funny little detail in the book of Genesis, but ever since Adam and Eve were clothed after the Garden of Eden, garments have been a bit of a problem in the life of the patriarchs. Esau's garments were used to deceive Isaac. Joseph's garments were used to deceive Jacob. Tamar puts on the garments of a prostitute to deceive Judah, right? And then Joseph's garments are here used to deceive Potiphar. The themes recur, as we've seen many times before. But now, the funny thing is, in all of these cases, God uses these events for his plan. Like, the deception in and of itself is not necessarily good. It's certainly not good in this lady's case. However, God uses these deceptions to further his plan. In this case, to get Joseph out of Potiphar's house. As soon as his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, "This is the way your servant treated me," his anger was kindled, and Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. And Joseph was there in prison. Joseph's imprisonment here is a bit of an interesting choice. The punishment that he deserved, according to many Old Testament and ancient Near Eastern laws, was death. Potiphar very well could have had Joseph executed, but he chooses not to. He puts him in prison. And the location of Joseph's imprisonment is also interesting. Where is he in prison?
King's prison.
Why does he go to the king's prison? Potiphar's not the king. Well, what we will find out as we keep reading is that the prison was under the authority of the captain of the guard. Anybody a really attentive reader and remember who the captain of the guard is? It's Potiphar. So Potiphar is the person who's in charge of the king's prison. And his name will not be used again. We're never going to make this explicit, that Potiphar, the captain of the guard, is the authority over the king's prison. But it seems like Potiphar put Joseph where he could keep an eye on him. Whether that's to protect Joseph or to punish him is unclear. But
It's almost like he maybe knew his wife a little bit. Like he didn't have him put to death, and he put him in a prison where he could keep an eye on him and maybe take care of him a little bit, as opposed to what he could have done. It's almost like he knew his wife.
yeah, we're told his anger was kindled, but we're not told at who. But whatever the case, yeah, that is believe it or not, that's a common interpretation, that Potiphar knew all along. And we might get more evidence for that as we go on. But we do have an addition to make to our summary. In spite of faithful service, oh man, I can't write that way. Joseph suffers. Okay. All right, we're going to leave that on the board. It's going to matter later. But that's our summary of what's happened so far. Okay. Joseph is in prison, right? Kind of a rough way for things to go. Rough new beginning in a new place. Who wants to read to find out what happens next?
The Lord was with Joseph, who showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper's prison. The keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him. Whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed.
Is this story sounding familiar? Okay. What are we expecting to happen next? In spite of faithful service, Joseph suffers. Rough beginning, new place. The Lord is with Joseph. The master sees it. Joseph is made second in command, overseer, and in spite of faithful service, we expect him now to suffer. We have a trend. Sometime after this, the cupbearer of the king of Egypt and his baker committed an offense against their lord the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he put them in custody of the house of the captain of the guard in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard appointed Joseph to be with them, and he attended them. They continued for some time in custody. And we're not told how long, but for some time. The cupbearer and the baker, it makes sense to be in the king's prison. They've committed an offense against the king. But we've got Joseph there for some unknown reason with these two men. And what happens next? Can I get a reader?
And one night they both dreamed, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, each his own dream, and each dream with its own interpretation. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw they were troubled. So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in custody in his master's house, "Why are your faces downcast today?"
Yeah, so the dreamer encounters some dreamers of his own, right? And the man who had two dreams at the beginning of our story encounters two more dreams, these two different people this time. But Joseph inquires, "Why are you sad?" These men. And they said to him, "We have had dreams, and there's no one to interpret them." Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell them to me." And the The logic is not necessarily clear here unless Joseph himself is confident that he is there in some sense on God's behalf, right? Like he's got a connection to God that nobody else does. And this is a kind of boastful thing to say, but whatever the baker and the cupbearer believe about Joseph at this point, they're going to humor him. And we as readers, as hearers of Genesis, know that in some sense Joseph is right. He does have a connection with God. And not only that, he's demonstrated already, and so has his family, demonstrated already the ability to interpret dreams, because Joseph had dreams of his own, and they seemed to all understand what the dreams meant, right? That's why they were mad. Who wants to read?
So the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph, and to him, in my dream there was a vine before me, and on the vine there were 3 branches. As soon as it was budded, its blossoms shot forth, and the clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand.
Who wants to read?
And Joseph said to him, this is the interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office. And you shall place Pharaoh's cup in his hand as formerly when you were his cupbearer.
Keep going, please.
Only remember me when it was well with you, and please do me the kindness to mention me to Pharaoh, and so get me out of his house. For I have indeed stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that I should be put into the pit.
Done nothing that they should put me into the pit. Is he talking about the Egyptians or his brothers in this case? I don't know. But Joseph pleads with the cupbearer to show him mercy when he gets away, to show him kindness. He gives the cupbearer the interpretation of the dream, and it is good or bad? Good, very good. Yeah, you're gonna be restored to your office as if nothing ever went wrong before. And who wants to read?
When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was favorable, he said to Joseph, I also had a dream. There were 3 cake baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there were all sorts of baked food for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating it out of the basket on my head. And Joseph answered, he said, this is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat the flesh from you.
Little play on words, little grim there. The baker was not expecting that interpretation of his dream after the cupbearer's dream was so well interpreted, so favorably interpreted. And on the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants. And he did lift up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. So in spite of faithful service to the chief cupbearer, Joseph suffers. He remains in prison. And we don't find out how long this will be true until the next verse. After 2 whole years, Pharaoh had dreams of his own. So he suffers by remaining in prison for 2 more years. Who wants to read about Pharaoh's dream?
After 2 whole years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile, and behold, there came up out of the Nile 7 cows, attractive and plump, and they fed on the reed grass. Behold, 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came up out of the Nile after them, and stood by the other cows in the bank of the Nile. And the thin, ugly cows ate up the 7 attractive, plump cows, and Pharaoh woke. He fell asleep and dreamed the 2nd time. Behold, 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing on one stalk. And behold, after them sprouted 7 ears, thin and blighted by the east wind. The thin ears swallowed up the 7
Something about Genesis, and I'm not sure what to make of this. We always get dreams in sets of two. 2 dreams for Joseph about his brother and his family bowing down to him. The cupbearer and the baker have a set of 2 dreams, and now Pharaoh has a set of 2 dreams. Not sure why, just interesting observation. I mean, realistically, Pharaoh could have had 1 dream, right? Like Joseph could have had 1 dream. They were the same message each time, roughly. But for whatever reason, God gives us 2. So in the morning, Pharaoh's spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was none who could interpret them to Pharaoh. After all, as Joseph says, the interpretation of dreams belongs to God, and God is not with them. It's at this time that the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Oh, I remember my offenses today." Oops. When Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, we dreamed on the same night, he and I, each having a dream with its own interpretation. A young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. When we told him, he interpreted our dreams to us, giving an interpretation to each man according to his dream. And as he interpreted it to us, so it came about. I was restored to my office, and the baker was hanged. Be pretty cool to have a guy around who could interpret dreams, right?
Maybe.
Somehow the cupbearer forgot this until this moment. But Pharaoh did what made sense. He's already tried the magicians. That didn't work, so he called for Joseph. And they quickly brought him out of the pit. And when he had shaved himself and changed his clothes, he came in before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I have had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." Joseph answered Pharaoh, "It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." It's interesting that Joseph here tells Pharaoh he's going to get a favorable answer. Right? Because he didn't know that about the cupbearer. That wasn't true for the cupbearer, the interpretation of the cupbearer's dreams. Joseph somehow knows before we begin that God is going to give Pharaoh a favorable answer.
There's a tradition that because dreams are open to interpretation, that when a righteous one interprets dreams for someone else, and Joseph certainly qualifies, that the interpretation actually dictates the outcome. So if you got a righteous man that you caught him on a bad day, he's grumpy, he gives you a negative interpretation, that may not have been the intended outcome, but that is what it is now. And I kind of see hints of that, or at least the roots of that, in that thought process in something like that. Joseph sees to his advantage, to the advantage of others, a more positive interpretation of this.
Well, we can say that the prayers of a righteous man are strong and powerful. That's certainly true from the book of James, right? But Joseph claims that these interpretations come from God. So I'm disinclined to accept that.
Right, but the idea would be that God gives him the ability to interpret
However he sees
however
fit.
he receives it, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still
Sure.
not quite there. But
Yeah.
so the dream is going to be interpreted. We already, just to kind of play my hand here, have Joseph in a new place and kind of a rough beginning. He's a prisoner before Pharaoh. But we already know in some sense that the Lord is with Joseph. He seems to be there wherever he goes, but Joseph is already promising us that the Lord will be with him in the interpretation of these dreams. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Behold, in my dream I was standing on the banks of the Nile. 7 cows, plump and attractive, came up out of the Nile and fed in the reed grass. 7 other cows came up after them, poor and very ugly and thin, such as I had never seen in all the land of Egypt. And the thin, ugly cows ate up the first 7 plump cows. But when they had eaten them, no one would have known that they had eaten them, for they were still as ugly as at the beginning. Then I awoke. I also saw in my dream 7 ears growing on one stalk, full and good. 7 ears, withered, thin, and blighted by the east wind, sprouted after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 good ears. And I told it to the magicians, but there was no one who could explain it to me." Now, neither of these events sounds physically possible. It's clearly a dream, right? A cow is not going to eat another cow. Not in one bite. And ears of corn, at least as far as I can tell, don't eat each other on the same stalk. I can't imagine how that would happen. But it's a dream, to be fair, and all kinds of crazy things happen in dreams. But you can see the parallels between the two. Like there's clear, the same things are happening. 7 and 7, fat and thin, swallowed, and what does it mean? Joseph said to Pharaoh, "The dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he's about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears, blighted by the east wind, are also 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown to Pharaoh what he's about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, but after them there will arise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land, and the plenty will be unknown in the land by reason of the famine that will follow, for it will be very severe." The doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that the thing is fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it about. What does that say about Joseph's double dream?
Same thing.
You would think so, but it's been a while, hasn't it? Been a couple years that Joseph has been waiting for what? What was Joseph's dream?
That his family would bow down.
That his family would bow down to him. Yeah. So that's fixed by God. It will shortly come about, but we're still waiting, right?
Well, Jesus will be back in a little while, and we're still waiting.
Yeah. Very good point. But yeah, we're setting up the story. And Joseph, I don't know if he knows what he's saying at this point. I kind of suspect he does. But Joseph says the following: "Now, therefore, let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plentiful years, and let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming and store up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. That food shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land might not perish through the famine." So we're going to have 7 good years, and after that 7 bad years. And Joseph says, pick some guy, any guy at all, somebody discerning and wise, and set him over the land, overseer over the land of Egypt, right? Again, I don't know if Joseph knew what he was walking into here, but he sets it up pretty well. And the proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find a man like this in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has shown you all this, there's none so discerning and wise as you are." And since we're reading Proverbs, I've got to say, Pharaoh made the right choice here. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Knowledge of the Holy One is insight, right? So if you want a wise and discerning man, somebody who worships the God of all creation is the best choice. And Pharaoh has found one. "You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards the throne will I be greater than you." So, rough beginning, new place. The Lord's with Joseph. His master sees it, this time Pharaoh. And Joseph is made overseer, second in command for all of Egypt. And what do we expect to happen next? In spite of faithful service, Joseph suffers. If that is our expectation in the book of Genesis, we are going to be pleasantly surprised. Because Joseph does not suffer in spite of faithful service. Joseph prospers in Egypt, and his family prospers, or will prosper, as long as they are in Egypt, and Joseph is still alive. But it's not quite like this is not still true. As what's the very first line of Exodus? Joseph is forgotten, and the kindness of the previous Pharaoh is forgotten, and there's a new Pharaoh who doesn't care about those promises and that kindness, right? And now the people of Israel suffer in Egypt.
You can certainly make the argument that he's out of the promised land, he's away from his family, he's away from his father. It's not an ideal setting.
I suppose. Joseph seems to interpret it as a pretty ideal circumstance, though. Throughout, Joseph is extremely optimistic about what's going on, especially when you consider what he's going to name his coming sons, right? Joseph's got a very favorable interpretation of his circumstances, and that God is using these less than perfect circumstances for an ideal scenario, at least in his own eyes. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I've set you over all the land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and clothed him in garments of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him ride in his second chariot, and they called out before him, "Bow the knee." Thus he set him over all the land of Egypt. So Joseph goes from a coat of many colors to not just a coat, but a coat and a chariot and a signet ring. All kinds of good stuff. Moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, and without your consent no one shall lift up hand or foot in all the land of Egypt." That's a lot of power, right? That's very explicit about the extent of Joseph's authority. Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphenath-Paneah, and he gave him in marriage Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. So Joseph went out over the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So what loose ends do we have in this story? Because if this were a Disney movie, this would probably be our happy ending and happily ever after, right? But what loose ends are there, at least as far as God and the promise given to Abraham is concerned?
He has no children,
Joseph has no children.
not in the promised
not in the promised land.
His wife was Egyptian.
Yeah, that seems a little off, at least from the story that we would have told so far. And critically, we know that there's a famine coming. So maybe this is more, I don't know, is it Frozen, where you get like this half resolution, but you know that they still have to go save the day? Like, this is one of those, like, we've kind of resolved the family tensions, but now we have to go save the day still. So this is where we're going with this story. There's a day yet to be saved, because the famine is going to hit Joseph's family too. And Joseph still hasn't been bowed down to by his brothers and his parent and his father. So there's more yet to figure out here. Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. During the 7 plentiful years, the earth produced abundantly, and he gathered up all the food of these 7 years, which occurred in the land of Egypt, and he put the food in the cities. He put in every city the food from the fields around it, and Joseph stored up grain in great abundance like the sand of the sea, until he ceased to measure it, for it could not be measured. So the last time we talked about great abundance that could not be measured, we were talking about Abraham's offspring, right? And now it's the food in Egypt. When a country is experiencing plenty, what is the temptation?
That it'll just be like that. And just,
Enjoy the plenty. Yeah, it's all life long is going to be this booming stock market that we have right now, right? We are going to go buy up stocks. We're going to go buy up fields and cities and spend our money on trips and vacations and such, right? When the country is prospering, the temptation is to enjoy it. But that's not what Joseph is doing. The prosperity is all put into the storehouses.
It's worth noting that prosperity had to have been pretty intense. If his plan was to save up only 20% to last the same amount of time, that 20% must have been a lot.
Yeah, because Pharaoh is getting a fifth. That was the arrangement that Joseph suggested. Well, next, before the year of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph. We've resolved one of our problems, right? Joseph has sons. Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, and just a brief aside, what does the name Potiphera remind you of? Potiphar. There's only one letter difference at the very end there between Potiphar and Potiphera in Hebrew, and the vowels are much later additions. That letter at the very end, could mean any number of different things. This very well may literally be Potiphar's daughter that Joseph has married, which would be really good evidence if we wanted to stretch this. And it's only implied, but so it would be a stretch. But it would be really good evidence that Potiphar knew the entire time, just as you suggested, and loved Joseph the entire time. Because after all, he was second in command in Joseph's household, and then he becomes second in command in the prison that Potiphar is master over, right? He's overseer in that prison, and now he's marrying the daughter of a man who's awfully close in name to Potiphar, right?
The Midrash actually holds that the reason that his wife went to Joseph so insistently is that she had a dream that her offspring would be from Joseph. And so she went to fulfill that, not realize it was to be her daughter and not her.
Yeah. Whatever the case, Joseph gets two sons, called the name of the firstborn Manasseh. For he said, God has made me forget all my hardship and all my father's house. Manasseh means forgetting. Presumably, it's not, I'm never going to think about them again. It's just, I'm not worried about, I'm not regretting, I'm not remorseful or vengeful for what was done to me. Then, the name of the second, he called Ephraim, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. And Ephraim means twice fruitful. Twice fruitful. And there's all kinds of theories of what we mean by twice fruitful here, whether it's the blessing underneath two different masters, Potiphar and Pharaoh, or it's the just, I've got two sons. That would be a twice fruitful. But as we said earlier, Joseph seems very happy with the way things are turning out. I've forgotten the bad. I'm focused on the good and the fruitfulness of this space. How much more do we have? Not too much. Who wants to read?
"7 years of plenty that occurred in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began to come, as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, go to Joseph, what he says to do, you do. So when the famine had spread all over the land, Joseph opened up the storehouses and sold the Egyptians, for the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all the earth came to Egypt, to Joseph to buy grain, because the famine was severe all over the earth."
It's a pretty profitable arrangement to be the only country with grain when everybody else is in famine. It's even profitable in terms of your own people, as we will see. Eventually, Egypt sells itself to Pharaoh. People are so starved that they say, what do we need our property for? Our land. We will give everything we have to you. And Joseph makes the arrangement of a fifth goes to Pharaoh, not just a temporary thing, but a permanent thing. And Joseph's arrangement makes Pharaoh wealthy, rich, and powerful. But it'll also turn out to be part of the reason that a future Pharaoh does not see the difference between his possessions and his people, and suddenly looks on Joseph's family, now descended from Joseph and his brothers, as possessions themselves. Any questions about what we've covered today? All right. Well, not seeing any. Next time, we'll cover Joseph's reunion with his brothers. His brothers turn out to be some of those who wanted food of their own in the midst of the famine and come to Joseph. And this reunion is a bit extended. We're going to do our best to get through it. It's the next 6 chapters, so it's a lot of ground to cover. Our final class in Genesis, probably final class, will be what happens next, that we almost never talk about. The Sunday school Genesis lessons end at Joseph's reunion with his brothers, typically. And so we're going to give a class to the spot that we almost never read. I suspect you've heard this part of the story before, but hang in. We've got lots more to cover, and hopefully we will get through all of next time in one class. Let's see. Last chance for questions? All right, let's close with prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the way that you teach us through the story of Joseph to trust your will and trust your mercy. Lord, you You blessed Joseph again and again, that no matter where he went, no matter what trouble he might face, you were there with him to bless the things that he did and to prosper his work in the world. Bless us to have confidence that you do the same for us, that you are with us wherever we go, that you want to prosper our work as we serve you wherever we may be. Especially we pray these things, confident that you did the same for Jesus Christ our Lord, in whose name we pray all this. Amen.